Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Logocentric. My name is Daxton Page, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most recent Netflix releases, Cuties. There's been a lot of buzz that's been circulating around a film called Cuties that was released about a couple months ago about a young girl who defies her family's very conservative religious traditions. In this case, this was a Muslim family. And in response, pursues a more extreme sense of pursuing her identity as a woman and gets involved in this dance crew that does, frankly, inappropriate dance moves for the age of the actresses involved. And there's been a lot of stirring as to the ethics of this and what's going on. Now, I'm a musician. I've been involved in the art world for a long time, and my perspective has been immersed in art culture for the past 15, 20 years, I would say. And so one of the things I want to take a look at is I don't want to be reactionary about this, but I also don't want to be relative about this as well, because there are certain black and white things that need to be discussed and need to be talked about, because there are some things that are a little bit disturbing, to say the least. So let's just go ahead and dive right into it. If you're not familiar with this, by the way, I would just recommend you would do some research on your own. There's a lot of stuff out there that's already been talked about this. I just want to throw in this opinion because I need to talk about it because it's been on my mind and it's kind of bugging me. And so let's jump in. So first of all, I am sort of against the production of a film like this. Specifically a film. Now, I heard people like Brett Weinstein mention, like, if it was a book, this might be a bit of a different issue. And that's correct, because when it's a book, it's purely imaginary. There's no empirical, objective reality about the story of a book. Now, we could dive into, like, how sometimes fictions can get at truths that are articulated, collectively and not through an, we can go down that sort of Jordan Peterson rabbit hole if we want to. But what I want to focus on is the fact of movies have an objective reality to them. And what I mean by that is there are real human beings that are actors and actresses that are performing the scenes that you're seeing in the movie. Now, I know there's CGI and things of that nature, but for the most part, that's what I'm referring to when I say there's an objective reality with movies that you don't have with something like a novel. Because a novel, every bit of objectivity that you draw from that resides in your psyche. All the characters' imagery, the imagery of the characters that you have in your brain isn't necessarily objective in the sense that it's like material world. But with a movie, you have actors and actresses that have to memorize lines and speak those lines into cameras and all that kinds of stuff. Now, where this becomes an issue is the age of the actresses. Because apparently, I have not seen the film. Disclaimer, I have not seen the film. I actually would recommend that you go to my Twitter page, Logocentric Pod, and check out a conversation I had with someone who actually had seen the movie start to finish and was trying to be objective about it. Now, it was a female who watched this, and from her perspective, the story was trying to articulate something that is a truism about the modern female experience because of social media and the hypersexualization of just mainstream media and Hollywood. Like have Instagram models and that whole, like, it used to be like the Paris Hilton lifestyle. Now you could call it like the Kardashian lifestyle. That whole thing, that's what the movie was allegedly at the very end rejecting. Now, from what I've seen from people who have seen the movie, is that this scene of like, oh, she rejects all these extremes and just tries to be a kid is like a 15-second clip at the very end. It's not a main integral part of the story. It's the last little at the very end. Now, you could argue as to whether that was artistically tasteful or not, but the fact of the matter is that if that's going to be the main thesis of your movie, you figure we would have more than 15 seconds of an emphasis on it. Now, on top of that, the actresses involved were ages 12 to 14. that is unacceptable for someone that age to have to perform sexually provocative dance moves that only an adult should really perform for other adults. And we have this director, but I wanted it to be real. No one says that in any other situation in a movie. There's not a murder scene and the director's sitting there going, man, I really wish we could just kill you so it would look real and we wouldn't have to use all these props and all this makeup and stuff. We could just kill you and it would actually make the point because you're actually dying and it looks real. So you're not really acting anymore. You see what I mean? No one ever makes that point in any other fictional scenario when making a film. That's not just something you complain about. And there's been some brutal scenes in movies. There's been horror movies where there's rape scenes. Those scenes are tough to watch. Like, I think it's Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is the name of the film. There's some scenes in there that are like, ugh, you just cringe. I don't like that. But the thing involved is there's acting. There's no real crime being committed. The crime that is being expressed in the movie is not being objectively committed by the actors/actresses. Okay? In this film's case, this was also a French film, I should point out. So you're like, how did they film this in America? And they didn't. They filmed it in France. But the objective reality of this is that 12 to 14-year-old girls did objectively perform those sexually explicit dance moves, and it was filmed by a crew with a director and a producer and a casting agent and all these things. All the bits and pieces that go into making a film, there was no exception here. The only difference is we had the crime that was allegedly being like, this is a bad thing, was actually being committed all the way throughout the production of the film. So that is, I think, what the fundamental issue is here. So for the people that are saying that, what happened, no one knows what art is anymore, everyone's becoming a bunch of puritanical, reactionary people that can't take art that pushes their buttons, I think that's a bullshit claim when an actual crime is being committed on camera. There's a reason snuff films are illegal, okay? It's because you can't just film a murder and then say it's art for the sake of saying it's art when you just committed a crime, okay? It's one thing to depict a crime, it's another thing to commit a crime on film. And in this case of the movie Cuties, the crime was committed on camera. Throughout all the takes of each scene, it's a crime being committed. Because, well, I shouldn't say not every scene was sexual in nature, obviously, but every scene that was provocative and sexual in nature was, in my opinion, illegal. And I don't know how it's being broadcasted in America, because the actresses are under the age of consent. So that means a parent can't consent for them in that manner. They can sign a waiver to say a child can be in a film, but they can't they can't just sign over a piece of paper that allows a crime to be committed against their children. You see what I'm saying? There's a difference between, we signed a waiver so our kid could be in the film, therefore all legal's good, or all the legalities are good, and I signed a contract to have a crime committed against my child. That's not legal by definition, because it's a crime, and anything that's a crime is illegal. So, I mean, I feel like it's stupid that we even have to have this conversation, but you have people defending this. Why is this an issue? It's an issue because there is a rumbling in the modern, it was, I think, unconscious, but it's becoming conscious now, is people are really rising up to the horrors of sex trafficking. They're rising up to those horrors, and they're actually trying to do something about it, thank God, right? And if you are interested in doing something about it, I would recommend you check out an organization called Our Rescue, AUR Rescue. That stands for Operation Underground Railroad. Check them out. They do tons of great work. I see posts all the time where they're rescuing people and putting people in jail. You want to help support an organization that's actually doing something, I would recommend checking them out. There's other organizations like that, but that's just one that I support personally, that I promote. But if you have another one that does exactly the same stuff, cool. Drop in the comment section. I'd love to hear about it, actually. But people are starting to finally realize this is a big problem. And with the rise of the popularity of the Epstein case, we're actually starting to see how big of a problem this potentially was in our highest offices, not only just highest offices in the literal sense of like governors and senators and House of Representatives, all that kind of stuff. But we're also seeing our figureheads, our celebrities, actors, actresses, musicians, all that kind of stuff are also being included on lists of people that went to Epstein's Island. So we've got an issue here. There seems to have been, and I don't want to make any objective claim to knowing something that nobody else knows. I don't know anything that hasn't already been said at this point. But I am assuming, based off all the evidence that I've seen so far, there seems to be evidence that there was a sex trafficking ring with Jeffrey Epstein that, whether, the U.S. government knew or not, existed. And I hope everyone that went to that island gets, they get taken down, right? But here's the thing. People are just now starting to be aware of this. And sadly enough, people like Alex Jones, gosh, why? Why did you predict this, Alex? Out of all the crazy shit you said, why did you have to be right about this one? You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you want to talk crap on Alex Jones, I totally don't blame you. Not at all. But he actually talked about Epstein and this island and about how they were doing this to kids a long time ago. But no one believed Alex Jones because he's kind of a kook, right? But he's admitted when he's said some pretty crazy stuff. But you know him, he gets very theatrical, right? And I think that's intentional to an extent. I think he knows he has an audience that he's playing to, and that has not worked in his favor, I don't think. I mean, you could say he's getting all these views, but to what extent he is viewed as a credible source of knowledge, I think Alex has hurt his brand in that sense. But he did talk about Epstein a long time ago, okay? And he was right about it. So there's been knowledge of some stuff like this. But as far as being in the mainstream consciousness, I think it's just now starting to get there. And so now people are very aware and sort of hypersensitive to any material that may push, this is sort of an arbitrary term, the Epstein phenomena any further. They're trying to recognize any potential, pedophilic activity, and they're trying to, eliminate it. They're trying to say, that's wrong. Let's not support this. Now, for instance, there was like a doll that was released from the movie The Trolls. I don't really know. I don't watch really movies anymore. I mostly get involved in this kind of stuff and watch YouTube lectures. But hey, whatever. There was a movie called Trolls, and there was dolls that were released as a consequence. And one of the dolls had a button. Like if these are the legs, there was a button right here. And when you press the button, it made sounds that were very disturbing. You can go research that for yourself. That is a fact. There's video evidence of it. And the people have said at Hasbro that, the whole point of this is when you sat the doll down, it made the sounds. But it's, I don't know. People, the modern consciousness is very hypersensitive to these type of things because we've heard of things like Epstein, and it's finally clicking that this is an issue, and it's not just like, it is in the shadows because no one's seeing it, but it's not just stuff you're seeing on reality TV, fake dramas and stuff. It's a real phenomena of shit that's happening, and we need to be, addressing it. And people are hypersensitive to anything that may be disgusting in that manner. So when you have a doll that has a button that's inappropriately placed on it, you're going to get some pissed off people. And they're not hypersensitive, puritanical people for being upset at that. They're genuinely concerned about their children, as they should be. As they should be. Have you seen, by the way, this is not, anecdotal. This is actual evidence. If you want to read the book, The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt, I recommend you do it. It's also co-authored by Greg Lukianoff. I hope I said that correctly. They talk about the rise in suicide attempts have gone up exponentially in younger people. And like instances of cutting and self-harm are up, okay? Not just like anecdotal, I think I'm depressed. Like people actually taking action on those feelings has gone up. I don't remember the exact numbers because I don't want to say the wrong thing, but go read those books. You'll get the exact figures. Or even better, a really condensed version of it. Jonathan Haidt was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he talked about these numbers. You can go over and check out that episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. And all the numbers are there, and they're equally as frightening when they're told in audio form as opposed to reading it. So check that out because it's actually terrifying. that social media is a problem. And because kids are on social media younger and younger, and not just social media, but just having access to the technology and being able to manipulate it. Now, there's pros and cons with that. You want a society where kids can use the technology that's in front of them and actually push it along further and just be, more technologically adept. It's sort of a natural progression. But also, with that exposure to technology comes the exposure of potential risks and threats, okay? Now, there are people that are trying to use the fact that younger and younger people are on social media as a means to exploit them. And we need to be aware of that, and we need to fight against that. And I think people are starting to, as I said a bunch of times, they're starting to become aware of this. The modern consciousness is raising for this sort of thing, and it's not going to tolerate any even remote resemblance of this type of behavior. And I think Cuties is just falling under the banner of inappropriate type things that we as Americans personally don't want to condone. Now, hey, if you're in France and you want to condone that, I think you're weird. But I guess that's your right as a nation to make your own laws. There's laws in Saudi Arabia that treat, people as second-class citizens depending on their gender or their sexual orientation. And I don't agree with that either. And I don't actually think they should be able to make those laws. So, I kind of don't think you should be able to make stuff like this in France. But somehow it got out, right? It got out, whether I wanted it to get out or anybody wanted it to get out or not. It's out. And I really don't think it should be broadcasted in America. I think we should at least as a nation be like, listen, we're not taking that. If this is going to be a hot button issue and blah, 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 I don't care. We're not taking this. I just think that would be the logical thing to do, considering the objective reality of the making of the film and the objective reality of U.S. law. I just think it would be silly to allow this to continue to be streamed on Netflix. It's ridiculous. And now we're seeing instances where criticisms of the movie Cuties are being flagged by YouTube, but the actual movie is still up. So you can't even criticize a movie that pushes things too far, even in terms of law and objective reality. Again, I'm an artist. I'm not someone who is for censoring art. That is not what I'm about. In fact, I write music about the opposite. I don't think art should be censored, but we have to be clear about what art is. And if you're going to commit categorize this how you want. To me, this type of behavior is violent offenses, right? Any sort of manipulation, coercion of a minor to do sexually related activities should be considered violently illegal. And not just illegal, but it's a form of violence. That's what I mean. Because you're hurting that kid's psyche, and you should be punished for that, okay? And so, as far as the objective reality of our law, I don't think it should be streamed in the U.S. on Netflix. And I think most countries, if they saw America take a stand like this, might think, well, you know what? I don't think I want this either. A whole country just said, get it out. I don't think it would survive very much longer. And again, people want to argue to me, well, Dax, you are blowing this way out of proportion. The story even seeks to condemn that behavior. And again, I think we've already covered that point more than we need to, but I'll go through it again for those of you who are slow learners on this. You do not need to commit the objective crime to make a piece of art depicting the crime being committed. Does that make sense? So what I mean is, for instance, you don't need to make a movie where you actually kill a bunch of puppies to make a movie about how killing puppies is bad. Okay? And actually, what's funny enough is I made that joke weeks ago, and then I had a buddy tag me in a Babylon Bee post where that's exactly what they said. And so I just find that hilarious because that's exactly it. Right? You don't need to make a movie where you kill a bunch of puppies see, guys, this is art because I'm trying to show you how bad killing puppies are. Didn't I push your buttons? Okay, so I'm kind of done talking about this. I've really said all I want to say about this. What do you think? Okay, have you seen the movie? Have you just seen the clips? And what do you think? Do you think I'm overreacting? Do you think a story and a film like this has an actual place in modern film in the modern day, or do you think that this is honestly just an unacceptable piece of art that objectively broke the law and is actually committing an offense against the actors/actresses? Let me know what you think. I think you know where I sit on this side of the debate. Now, to touch back on the argument that I had, or the discussion rather, that I had with someone on Twitter about this, is they were pretty adamant that as cruel as the reality is depicted in the movie, that is something that women objectively deal with. So, again, to sort of close this out, I am not against a film that accurately represents the sort of inappropriate, behavior that underage women have to deal with in the objective modern life, like living in the 21st century. I don't think there's anything wrong with making a film that's accurate about those experiences. I do, however, have a problem when the attempt to make such a film includes the crime for which that it is trying to, espouse against, right? It's supposed to be against this, and it's committing the crime within it. So it's hypocritical. It's what you would call a performative contradiction. So you can say, well, the film's about not that. Well, whether the film is about that or not, you did it. So whether you made a film that's the point and the moral of the story was to be for or against is irrelevant, because objectively, you committed the same crime. That's what I have to say about that. Like and comment if you like this video. Please subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and hit the notification bell to be notified right when episodes just like this come out. Also, head on over to Locals and ThinkSpot, where we're having conversations that we don't have here, where I go into a little bit more deep concepts. One of the topics we talked about a couple weeks ago was, can free will and determinism coexist? That may be a video I do later in this upcoming series of videos, but hey, we'll see. Head on over there and jump in on the conversation, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.